Previously on agentpalmer.com, Caught Stealing might be the most violent book I've ever read. Nimona recaptures the underdog magic of the original Shrek, and yes, I do still listen to the radio to the left of the dial. This is the Palmer Files, episode 117, with Nick Schiner, who is an educator, a maker, and a gamer, as well as a family man, and who just happens to be a guy I met on the internet and who turned out to be cool. We talk about meeting in a chat room and how that's not as bad as it sounds, online communities, reading, being the family IT guy, and much, much more. Are you ready? Let's do the show! Hello and welcome to the Palmer Files. I'm your host, Jason Stershik, also known as Agent Palmer, and on this 117th episode is Nick Schiner, or as I first met him, Obi-Wan Nickobi. You're going to hear us chat in real time for the first time. That's what this is. It's a meeting, but we've hung out in our overlapping circle of friends, streams, chats, so we weren't complete strangers going in. That said, there is plenty about Nick that isn't covered, and you should definitely check out stayplaying.com for more information about how Nick is working to make sure the future of learning is bright. He is, quote, an advocate and architect of playful living and learning, unquote, and really, he's also a great person. Here in this conversation you are about to listen to, we talk about how we met in a chat room and online communities, remembering how we got into something maybe overrated, turning off the internet, being family tech support, algorithms, YouTube, streaming services, is that printer really necessary, and much, much more. But before we dive in, remember that if you want to discuss this episode as you listen or afterward, you can find all related ways to contact my guest, Nick Schiner, and myself in the show notes. There you can also find a link to Nick's site, which will connect you to him in countless ways. You can count them, I choose not to, at stayplaying.com. Don't forget you can see all of my writings and rantings at agentpalmer.com, and of course, email can be sent to thepalmerfiles@gmail.com. So without further ado, let's get into it. Nick, I met you in a chat room on the internet.
Yes, you did.
This would have been a red flag 5, 10, 15 years ago.
I mean, it still could be.
It still could be. I think that, nowadays, I think it's more likely to develop into some kind of a digital relationship of some kind first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And now we're talking. And I just want to say that, while we don't interact all the time, it has kind of been great to see you in chat with me on occasion. And it's this little look, it's Triforce Dad 1984. It was his stream when he was streaming, and hopefully he'll come back again.
I know, I miss that.
And he's been on the show many times. But I want to say it's nice that these little pop-up communities exist on the internet, and it's kind of been nice to finally meet you now, as it's just no, I met you in a chat room's not like the worst. It's not bad, right?
I didn't catfish you. This is me.
Yeah,
this
right?
is not an AI. This is not an AI projection. Yeah. This is actually me. I am here in the pixels.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know anybody who's got that kind of money to catfish on such a level.
No.
And if you do, could you throw some our way?
Sure. Yeah, I'll pick up the next sponsorship.
Yeah, right. What is it about Twitch? And I ask this generally. I don't know. I guess what I would say is Chris is my friend, Triforce Dad. He's the only chat I chat with on Twitch. Otherwise, I am a lurker. That's what I am most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
I see, generally speaking, that other Twitch communities are nice and good and like wholesome. What is it for you that like gets you to engage, not just in that one where we met, but just in others? Or is that the only one you engage in?
No, I mean, so I would say I probably lurk more than I chat.
Okay.
Usually if I chat, it's because I already have some form of relationship with that person. Triforce Dad, I feel like it was an anomaly. Like Chris was an anomaly. Like I don't even remember how I stumbled upon his stream. Like it's been so long now. Like I have no idea how I stumbled upon his stream, but like vibes, man. Like it's just like sometimes it's just vibes. It's like it is so much about the person, what they're doing, and how you see them engaging with others. So often is what makes that like a place where you feel welcome to just chime in.
I think it's the same as kind of a like almost any other medium. Like yeah. My audience is going to be sick of hearing this by the time I finish, but like I'm reading every book in my house as a means to save money and as a means to get rid of books. Like I figure I'll know what to get rid of if I read it. Nah, it's not worth it. Or, oh, I want to keep that one or whatever. But it leads me to how you do not remember falling into Chris's chat. There are a number of books. Some I've loved, some I've hated, some I'm indifferent to that I have read over the course of this journey, and it feels like a curse at times because it's like, where did these come from? I don't know where some of these came from. I have no idea how they ended up in my library, and I think the same is true for like, I like that show. I can't imagine not watching that show. I don't know who introduced me to it. I don't know where it started. Like, yeah, I think we put a little bit too much pressure on ourselves to kind of remember the origin, but I like to ask anyway. Sometimes there's a great story, and other times it's, I have no idea.
I mean, I think the best story that I can think of that's kind of related to this is the connection, Psionic Monkey, right? Like, Matt, I've known him since middle school. Okay. We went to middle school together. And the fact, like, he became far more entrenched in Triforce Dad's community than I did. Cause like I keep in touch in lots of different ways. Like I said, most of the time I actually have Twitch on the TV. Like very rarely do I actually have it open on the computer.
I am, so first of all, I'm with you. Twitch it's a television for me, which may be why I'm a lurker, right? Cause the chat function, horrible. Unless you're on a computer.
It's a pain to bring it up on your phone. Then you got the audio playing on your phone. And like, I know they have a way to like chat just from, but like, it just doesn't feel worth it most of the time.
It's not.
But I like, again, and I don't even remember the origins of what happened, like how Monkey got into that, but like just seeing that relationship blossom and him become such like an integral part of that community. It's just, it's, I say funny, but it's just kind of, it's amazing that somebody we grew up in like the same relative square mileage, and he's connected with somebody that's not in the state through video games and through online streaming.
Yeah. And it's, if I were to find a point on it, it's what we always hoped the internet would be. Honestly. Yeah. I mean, I'm 40. So for me, as an early adopter of the internet, this was always the promise. This is not what is. Yeah. This is not the reality. And I think we are explaining and talking about very, very specific cases. But this was always the promise: was that you were going to meet someone and start a friendship. You didn't have to go hang out with them at the bar, which I have done with Monkey. Yeah. And
that's amazing.
We don't have to, do what, Steph, who moved in with me, from meeting her on Twitter through a podcast community. Like that doesn't have to have, it can just be as simple as, Nick's cool. You should maybe talk to Nick. And it's like, oh, sure. Yeah.
Why not? Yeah, I like cool people.
It makes me it makes me kind of, look, I'm a pessimist generally, but it makes me slightly optimistic that like some of these connections are tangible and aren't just about like, but are you catfishing me? Like, is this a long game somehow?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this isn't to shame anybody who's ever been catfished, but like I feel like it's really hard. Like it's pretty easy to tell, like, if there's a robust online presence. And again, like Twitch also takes some of that out of it, right? If you see the person streaming and they're not like a VTuber, like I know that Triforce Dad is Chris. Like that would be a really elaborate ruse, to your point from earlier, if he like hired somebody else to stream The Legend of Zelda and then was just a completely different person on Discord.
Yeah.
So like, I think that, like, and I think that to a pretty great degree, like that is kind of the bar for me, is like, I don't oftentimes just connect with like absolutely random people on the internet. Like I would say like Chris Triforce, like that is probably one of the more random ones that I've just been like, oh yeah, like GamerDoc as well, who was with Evil Geniuses for a while. Like she and I connected. Like we went to AwesomeCon in DC a couple of years ago. Those are like, but again, like it was easy to verify. Like, okay, you have an Instagram, you stream on Twitch. Also, strangely, was streaming Legend of Zelda. But like, and then playing games with them. Like, there's enough interaction that you're like, okay, you're verifiable. Like, you, and if you're not, like, honestly, good for you. Like you fooled you. Like, okay, like you got me.
Yeah, I remember in my very early podcasting career, one of the questions that was in the circle I was in often was, if you could turn off the internet, would you? And at the time, I was a serial podcast guest, but I was a blogger. I still am a blogger.
Yeah.
And I always leaned towards turning it off. Like there was never a part of me that was like, you know what? Keep it going. Like there was never, and I still to this day think about that question sometimes and go, I think I'd rather turn it off than leave it on. I think even though I've made these connections and I've seen the good that can happen, I get more frustrated at the internet as a whole, as a large entity, than I do, or our connectedness to it, than I do see the benefits. Because for every one random relationship, friendship, colleague, business opportunity that you get on here, it's me sitting in my living room with my friends and three of them are on their phones. And I've made it a point to keep it in my pocket, put it in the other room. I've made it a point to disconnect. And I'm not telling other people how to live their lives, but it sucks when I'm okay, now I'm bored because everybody else is on their phone. Nobody else is here, though. Like, they might as well not be here. And so that's kind of where I always end up being like, just turn it off.
So, like, but on the flip side of that, to your point, those three friends could be the three friends that are on their phone talking to you. And so, like, and how many connections you've made in that way. I think, like, I talk a lot about this at work, like digital diet, like digital habits, like being too online is obviously a very real thing. But like, you've got to curate your digital lifestyle just like you curate everything in real life.
This is something I get made fun of all the time, okay? Because Stephanie and I use YouTube. It may be our number one streaming platform.
I would say mine is as well. And
my YouTube, because we're logged into my account, is the main YouTube we use.
Mm-hmm.
And occasionally we'll be hanging out in the living room where, just like Twitch, YouTube goes on the TV. It's not a computer thing. And somebody will be like, oh, I'd really like to whatever. Like there was one time we were having a conversation about old classic 90s VH or music videos. And I was like, hold on, let me log out of my account.
You don't want to mess up your algorithm.
I don't want to mess up my algorithm. Like we talk about digital balance and moderation, but I also think that algorithm curation, which I have at the top of my head because I've been in marketing and I understand how the algorithm can be used against you. I look at it like right now, if I put on my YouTube channel, it's going to give me creators and content that I want, not just random. Like it's all designed to get you to watch it. I want to maintain in what I've curated.
Homeostasis.
Yes. That's.
Oh, I get it.
More people need to, I think. This is the other, like, I don't know if people quite realize, just log out, just do something else, do it in a different browser.
Throw kids into the mix, man. It's, thank God YouTube Kids has its own separate app because the algorithm would be bonked for me. Like thankfully I can just use the YouTube Kids app, but otherwise, like I would have Number Blocks and Coco Melon and like Spidey and His Amazing Friends is really great. The cartoon on Disney Junior is fantastic. Love it. Highly recommend. Not really for adults, but like Green Goblin like throws goo and like ruins birthday parties. Okay. Like he's not like but like I agree with you. I don't want that. I don't want that in my feed. And like you can go in and you can fix it, but I mean, I think the best way to handle that is depending on the device you're using, like the smart device, like you can actually have them beam it from their phone.
Okay.
Like that's actually probably like that way.
As opposed to just logging out and logging back in, where you're at some point, let's be real, you're gonna forget to log out.
Yeah.
At some point.
Yep. And then you're gonna get a bunch of randoms. Like I hate like even myself, I worry that I'm gonna mess up my algorithm because like I have multiple YouTube accounts, like one for work, like all these different accounts. But like I'll be like, I need to look up how to do this thing. Like I want to build something, or like I need to troubleshoot this on my computer. And then all of a sudden I start getting like tutorials for things I just have no interest in whatsoever. Okay. But I needed it in that moment. So it's like even then, like sometimes I have to remember to like bring up YouTube in incognito mode so that I don't mess up my own algorithm by myself. Yeah,
I'm pretty good at using another browser when I need to. It's just it is an extra level of vigilance. You have to be on guard for it. Like if you want to make your algorithm your algorithm, you have to be on it all the time. You can't not think about it, because it only takes one bad search and a video you watch, and all of a sudden, sorry, good luck.
Right.
And what's worse, and this is the reason that I think I prefer YouTube on my TV, is YouTube will autoplay on hover, and that goes into your history. And it's like, I just wanted to move my mouse from one screen to the other. I didn't no, that's not, what are you doing? And all of a sudden, bam, here we are.
Do you have YouTube Premium? Like
no, I've
been considering it.
I don't know where I fall on it other than we currently have Sling. And as a platform, Sling's okay. But by the same token, Paramount Plus is a pretty crappy platform. Look, all of these are great on my computer. But that's not how I enjoy them. And so I'm watching Star Trek on Paramount Plus. I turn on Paramount Plus and I go make a cup of coffee because I got that much time for it to load. It would load instantly on my PC, but I don't want to watch it on. No, like
What device? What are you using to stream it?
a Fire Stick.
Yeah.
And it's, you know what? Here. This is everything you need to know. It's like a 6-year-old Fire Stick because I refuse to buy into planned obsolescence. It has to stop actually working first.
I get it. I honestly I used Apple TV for a really long time. Like I love Apple TV, like my app, like the actual box, not Apple TV Plus, the other streaming service.
Yeah, of course, sure. But, like let's name the. There's also Peacock and Hulu. Let's name them all. So many.
But we went with Samsung TVs. We needed one TV. Like I bought myself the Samsung frame like a year or two ago. My birthday's right around the holidays, so I always do a joint birthday holiday present.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So the Samsung frame is amazing. Like you get amazing art on it, which is awesome. And then our TV in our living room went up, so I put another Samsung there, and their smart platform is actually pretty great and pretty responsive, loads quickly. So I'm actually not even using like an external streaming thing anymore, and it's just so preferred. It's less little remote controls to lose.
Oh, see, for me, I know what my preferred platform is, but all of the TVs in my house are old. And again, I'm against planned obsolescence. So until these things break,
you're riding those TVs.
I'm riding those TVs, but my preferred future option is streaming from a laptop. That's my preferred future option, just because
just plug an HDMI in.
No, just hopefully beaming it wirelessly.
Oh yeah.
Because I believe that, and there are probably like marketing executives for like each of the individual platforms that will say otherwise, but I think that all of the devices that we use to connect those services to our TV are genuinely crap. And they're the programming that goes into them is spotty at best. So you do get frustrated and buy the next one and the next one. And I just want my laptop to look and look. I said I was 40. This also means that I was a part of, well, Windows XP will last forever.
Sure.
And so, like, I think they learned their lesson of like, well, if we make something and support it for long enough, people will just hold on to it.
Right.
But it's also why, some of our parents can use technology and some of them can't.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God. Your IT support for the family as well?
I was also IT support for a 15-person nonprofit organization for a while. And yeah, before that job, I was IT for the, I am the worst IT professional. I just have no patience. What did you do?
The company computer guy.
What did you? Yeah,
you're welcome.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, I didn't do anything. Sure, you didn't. You didn't.
It's frustrating. It's really like, I don't think people understand the burden of being family and friend tech support.
I think the only people that understand it are mechanics, because I find that the conversations I have with like actual mechanics where it's like, I can't replicate your problem. And I'm like, I know, but I had a problem. I understand what they're talking about, because like you, as the IT professional, whether for friends, family, or professionally, the moment you walk into their cubicle, their office, or in front of their workstation, it solves itself in proximity for no apparent reason. And then you're like, I can't fix it if there's nothing wrong with it. It's like, well, it wouldn't print 10 minutes ago. Yeah, but it's printing now, so I cannot help you. And I think that, IT professionals are not paid enough. And I definitely think that they should be allowed to go off on people.
Yeah, for me, like, especially the family and friends thing, it's like, just be like, my talent with IT work is like I have no formal certification.
For the record, I am with you. I also have no formal certification.
I learned this all myself. So like figure it out or go pay somebody.
Yeah.
Like go that there's Geek Squad for a reason. There's your strip mall gadget gurus and all those. Like for any other problem, you wouldn't ask me for it. Please don't ask me.
Hey, my toilet keeps running. Nick, do you mind?
Right, it's like the problem is I do like fixing those things, but I want to do it on my terms. And then the problem is like if it's complicated enough, then I'm like, okay, well now my whole day's shot because I'm not going to be able to stop thinking about this unless I fix this for you.
Oh, see, for me, some of it is also like I have been able to explain like I can't do that. Like I've actually gotten fairly lucky that many of the hard or very difficult problems I've run into in family and friend tech are things that I have unfortunately dealt with myself. So that hard drive needs to be completely reformatted. Like that's 12 hours. Mm-hmm. I know you can't afford to pay anybody else to do that, but you aren't going to get me to do that till next weekend or whatever it is. So I've been a little bit lucky with that, but a lot of it is also like you bring the average age down of people I associate with on a regular basis. My average age is retirement. These are the people I hang out with more often than not. And some of them are probably more technical than I am. And the rest of them are complete novices. And so it's like, they don't want to upgrade to Windows 15 or whatever the next one is. I want this one to work. And it reminds me, I go back 20 years to when my mom's mom died. And I think about my rich uncle who bought her in succession, like an electronic typewriter and then web TV and then tried to get her a computer and then tried to like all the things we tried to get her connected at a time when, I was 13, 14, 15. I was on the internet. All my cousins were older than me and on the internet. Like she wanted a letter. You were I love my uncle who tried, and I appreciate that he tried, but she wanted a letter. She wanted a handwritten letter, and she was never going to reply to you on that. Like and basically when I remember going through the house being like, these are all of the attempts we made. She was a smart woman. She taught, English and journalism for like 100 billion years in a high school, but like, she didn't want it. She just didn't want it. It was never going to happen.
That cracks me because the other end of the spectrum is like my grandfather. Every year he wants to upgrade his iPhone. Oh. And he's like, "What do you think? Should I do it?" I'm like, "If you want, like, what's really nice about it?" And I'll explain it to him, and I'll say to him, "You're not going to use any of it. You're not going to use any of it. So if you want to upgrade it." You have the means to do that. Go ahead. The other one is my father-in-law. God bless him. My in-laws are absolutely amazing, but they are also hilarious. And my father-in-law has bought more inkjet printers than I know what to do with. And I texted my wife and my brother-in-law are in a chat, and I'm just like the man. Every time I talk to him, he needs me to help him with a new printer. And my favorite thing is, and this is why, he's so kind about it. And I know he doesn't want to bother me. It's to the point now where when he wants me to help set up his new printer, he brings over the printer and his laptop to my house so that I don't have to go to his house and set it up, which is wonderful. But then without fail, and actually this last time, like a week or two ago, was the first time he didn't get home and say, "Well, you connected it to the internet at your house, but I'm home now and it's not connected. Like, I'm not connected to the internet anymore."
Okay.
So for the longest time explaining to him that the internet is not ephemeral and everywhere.
Yeah.
connecting to my internet does not mean when you get home you are connected to your internet. So we've just gone with the hardwired solution now. Like, I gave him a USB plug. I'm like, he always has them sitting right next to each other. I'm like, let's just take the Wi-Fi out of the equation.
Yeah. I also feel like I've been babying one printer with a little bit of ink for like 3 years now.
So funny.
And it's like
little eyedropper of water on there. Like,
we're at this point, we're just like, okay, I think as long as I only print out the 3 things we print out a year,
yeah,
it'll last another year. I don't like, there's a part of me that wants a printer, but at the same time, if I have a big printing project, I'd rather pay and go somewhere else than have a printer in my house.
Get a high quality print.
I don't want to what is he printing?
Invoices.
Okay.
But he's mostly he's retired. Like, I think he does, like, I don't know, like not many invoices. Like I said, he's retired. So, but like, he wants to be able to, but like at that point, like, don't buy the printer. Like you said, go to FedEx and print it for 15 cents.
I have a consulting business. I haven't printed an invoice. The only invoices I've ever seen printed of my own are the few that people print out and send back to me with the check.
Sure.
Like, but yeah, otherwise, like, it's all digital. Like, what? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a generational thing. My grandfather, the one I was talking, the iPhone one before, like, again, like, it's the dichotomy of this is so funny because it's like he wants the new iPhone every year, but it's mostly because he just wants to say he has the new iPhone. But like, man sold life insurance and did financial planning for years. Still works to a little bit of a degree. Just like crushed it in both of those industries. And we bought some life insurance policies and other insurances from him. And when I tell you that man would come into my house with a yellow legal pad and policies actually printed out on paper.
Okay.
I'm like, and my cousin did this. Like, my cousin worked with him for a while, and he'd be like, yeah, like everybody else just does all of this on the computer. But like, my grandfather's like sitting there, like showing me the math on paper and like pulling up like charts of like premiums and like how much term life insurance will cost if I buy it at 30 as opposed to 35. I'm like, dude, this has got to be on the internet somewhere.
Yeah, I see. I have a little dichotomy too. Like, I want to read a book. I want to hold a book. I don't want it on a Kindle. No, thank you.
Absolutely.
But books take up space, which is how I started doing the whole like, well, I'm going to read all the books in my house thing. Is like, well, some of these I've been moving for a few moves, and some of it, but I have a few old magazines, and I go, I miss the old magazine. Yeah. I really do. But, you know, I think
I always buy a magazine or a book when I'm at the airport.
Okay.
Always. And like when I want, if there's something I want to read, I buy it. I buy like the physical copy of it. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. Like I have a Kindle. I love my Kindle. It's super convenient. It obviously takes up less space, but if I'm reading on my Kindle, I Jack Sparrowed it. Like,
I've been told that were I to have a child, the Kindle will be my lifeline. But I also feel like I'm so attached to the book. Like I
love my kids seeing me read a physical book for as much time. And like, I'm not a screen time doesn't bother me. Like, I have no problems with that stuff at all. Like, there's all sorts of conversations around that, but like, I do like my kids to see me reading a physical book, and I like the feel of a physical book. I like the smell of a physical book. Yeah. Like, it just hits different.
I also feel like there are too many, even on a Kindle, there are too many distractions for a book. And especially as we've gotten into, like, the Kindle I have is like the second generation.
Yeah,
you need a light to read with it. Old. Very old. And I feel like now that they can have pop-ups and notifications, that's where I have a problem with the screen time.
I have Wi-Fi turned off on mine.
Okay.
I have
right.
the Wi-Fi. I have the Wi-Fi turned off. Like I said, I sideload anything I want to read. I sideload on it.
Okay.
Because I don't want to. I don't want to. I have a hard enough time buying digital video games. Because they can be taken away at any point. And I remember like pretty early on in like the Kindle like explosion. It's so funny. And it wasn't even a paid book. It was a free copy of Orwell's 19. The irony of this, it was 1980. Do you remember this? Do you remember this happening?
No.
There was a copy of Orwell's 1984 and something happened with the licensing. And like, I think that's what it was, that like the license, like that like expired and they couldn't sell it anymore, even though it was free. And anybody who had it and your device was connected to Wi-Fi, it pulled it off the device.
Wow.
I don't want to pay to rent a book. If I'm going to do that, I'm going to go to the library or I'm going to use Libby. Like Libby. So that I will tell you, Libby is great. Okay. Like Overdrive, like if there's something I want to read and I'm traveling and I don't feel like carrying a bunch of books and I'm gone for like a week, Kindle is great. It's absolutely great. But like when I'm home, I've got a stack of books on every floor. I pick up the one I want. And like, I don't read as much as I'm making it sound like I'm like this like voracious reader. I wish I was. I get distracted by many things. Well, but I do like to be surrounded by books. They make me happy.
Okay. How many books do you read at once?
One I would read. I'll read one fiction book. But I'll read multiple nonfiction. I could have anywhere between 1 and 5 nonfiction books.
I read one at a time. And what's funny to me is that when I talk to other readers, I'm in the minority. Like most readers I encounter are like, yeah, I'm reading about 3 or 4 books, like one fiction, sure. Or like one, results may vary, but generally speaking, I don't run into a lot of people that read just one book at a time like me. I just can't.
I mean, if I'm on like a fiction kick, I'm reading one book at a time.
Okay.
I'm reading one book at a time if I'm reading fiction. But I would say most of my nonfiction reading is either related to work or just something I'm interested in, and I'm not necessarily reading it cover to cover.
Okay.
And like a lot of times I will pick up a book when like one of those books when I need something from it. Like I'm reading. Do you know Ali Abdaal? No. He's on YouTube. He was a doctor, like got big on YouTube because he like created content around like studying for like the boards and like getting into Ivy League schools and stuff like that. And then didn't like being a doctor, so moved into like productivity hacks and things like that. And his content is great. I'm reading his book right now, Feel Good Productivity. And like I'll read a chapter at a time. Okay. But like I almost treat it like I just read a magazine article.
Oh, okay. I got to think about that. It's time to process.
Section. I'm like, I just like the first chapter is actually great. It's all about play and like the interplay, no pun intended, of play and work, and like how all these like Nobel Prize winners all attribute their winning the prize and like their discoveries to play. Okay. So like I read that and then I'll put the book down for like a week or two. And in the meantime, like I'm reading another book on like building community because like that's the work I do most of the time. So like I'm like, okay, like what does starting a community look like? So I'll pick up like 3 books that are related to that, and I'll read like the first section to see which one sticks, and then maybe one I dive into more, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, you know what? I really want to go back and read more productivity hacks. Okay. So yeah.
I mean I'm not afraid to dig in, but like one at a time. It seems to be, and I will say this, I've read some bad books that.
Do you have to finish a book?
So here's what I will say. I don't know what happens if I don't, because I've never not.
That's right. So you always finish a book?
As of right now, yeah.
Even if you don't like it, you still finish it?
I've read at least 2 books in my life now.
Okay.
And one of the last books I read, I don't know when the review comes out because the aforementioned Chris helps me with my blog on occasion as editor, and he was like, dude, you don't have a book blog, you have a geek blog, so like make sure that your book reviews are only every other post. And I have a weekly blogs, and at that time it was like, well, here's 2 months worth of book and I haven't written about any other medium. And so he's like spread it out. So I don't know when this is going to come out, but the last book that I didn't hate read, but that I just kind of trudged through, I called just the worst TED Talk I've ever read.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll finish it. I don't know. I also think there's some value in the bad. Like and so thankfully it's not happened that much, although I have a lot of hand-me-down Jewish neighborhood-ish type books where it's not about the religion, but it's about religious people that I got. Those I know I inherited from cleaning out houses.
Right.
So those are ones where I'm like, there must be something of value in here. It came from my grandfather. He must have found. Then again, I don't know if they I have no validation that they read this. It could have been on their shelf too.
Like someone may have just like given it to them and they just threw it on their bookshelf and they've never actually touched it.
But I just feel like I'm still learning my own writing voice. Like I've been blogging for over a decade now, but I feel like I'm just starting. If I'm even starting, like I think I'm finding my voice. And I don't know if the podcast helps or hurts. Because I know you shouldn't write the way you speak necessarily, but as I've taken on new things, and I think part of the reason that like reading a book that may or may not appeal to me is, there's one exhibit A that will always, push me to finish the book. And that is, I read The Magus by John Fowles, I think. Now, it's not his first book, and it's not his most famous book from what I understand, but The Magus is a book that I could have gotten to in any number of ways, okay? I ended up getting to it because I happened to be on Reddit one day, and somebody was like, I read The Magus, and it changed my life. And that was the headline, and I went, well, now I'm kind of curious of what The Magus is about, so I bought it. Now, this is completely and unrelated to the fact that Agent Palmer is based on Michael Caine's portrayal of Agent Palmer, Harry Palmer, in The Ipcress File, and he was in the movie adaptation of The Magus, which I had seen but had forgotten about until I finished reading The Magus. Now, back to The Magus itself as Exhibit A for why I will finish a book. The Magus is like 500 or 600 pages. It was written in the mid to late 60s or something like that. I was 300 pages into this 500 or 600 page book and had no clue what the hell. I couldn't have even told you what it was about that far in. And the last 200 pages were so amazing based on what was set up that I was still lost on exactly what the plot was that far into the book, and it just turned around. Now, I understand that that's probably something that can only happen in fiction, but I like to think that even a nonfiction person could find a way to turn it around or give you at least a good punchline or leave you with something at the end that made it worthwhile. And so even if I don't like the book, I'm probably going to finish it because I want to know what's in there.
I totally respect that. Like, I respect the grind. I have not finished far more books than I finished.
Now, how about movies?
I'll turn them off.
Okay.
I'll turn TV shows. Like
TV shows. I'm willing. TV shows. I feel like it's just because I've given up on FOMO. So like whatever, like I can name you the series that Steph and I started together that we just never got back. There's so much.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we consciously were like, yeah, let's stop watching that one. It's just like, we just kind of never went back to it.
Yeah, no, I mean that definitely happens, but I will tell this is why I also recognize that I shouldn't do this all the time, but sometimes I can't fight my nature.
Yeah.
Like I stopped Breaking Bad. Like Breaking Bad is obviously
I never started it.
Classic. I mean that so the first season is fine, but my wife and I started it. We watched a couple episodes, and then we just kind of, like you said, just kind of weren't unhappy with it. Just we're okay, this is fine, but never got. And then we were okay, well maybe we should start this again. And we were we actually were we have to start it over. At this point, I don't want to just pick up where we left off. Let's just start it over and commit to the season and see where it goes from there. And I know everybody says it's one of the best shows. It's a great show. It's not one that I necessarily would go back and watch again. I know people who watch it over and over again. That's not my thing. I don't really love heavy drama on repeat. But it's an amazing show. And I'm so glad that I pushed through what I didn't love to get to what I loved. But maybe I don't know. I think maybe I used to push through, but now I really just don't.
I think it also has to do with what's your tolerance level. I've got friends that are for me, I'll tell you the one I didn't finish. I didn't finish the animated Clone Wars.
Okay.
I got 2.5 seasons in, and I went, I'm not really feeling it. And everybody's but it gets really good at season 4, and I'm I'm sorry. I'm out. I'm washing my hands.
I get it.
You're gonna have a hard time convincing me that it gets good at season 4.
I mean, they're not wrong. It does.
But I still have a season and a half of I don't really care.
I'd argue you could skip. You could go right to it. And I know I have a completionist thing that
I do too, a little bit. Yeah. It's not, and I know the book thing is what, but for generally speaking, I do like to finish things.
Yeah.
And go in order. So.
But it does get really good. It does get really, really good. But I could also totally again, you could totally skip the first few seasons, and when it gets good, and when they get similar to if you've watched any of the shows that are on Ahsoka or Mandalorian, it gets into.
No, I think part of it was I stopped all of it. I Echo looks good, but we never finished Secret Invasion, and the MCU. I look at Star Wars now the same way as I look at the MCU.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where it's you know what? I enjoyed those 20 movies up to, Endgame and Infinity War. Mm-hmm. That journey was wonderful.
Yep.
I'm okay not taking the next train.
They started doing too much.
But I think they
got greedy with let's just pump out as much content as possible.
So I would argue it was also a thing where around that time I found Minecraft YouTube and Hermitcraft, and I found these ways I found Loading Ready Run, and I found these independent internet creators that pump out equally good quality. I'm not going to say it's Marvel level, but if you're interested in good storytelling, it's there regardless of where you're going to look. And it's they don't need Star Wars. Ahsoka doesn't need my view, but this is an independent creator who's going to care that they went from 100 to 101. I guess I'm just going to support the little guy now. And so I've kind of moved on. And that's why YouTube has become the first thing I check in the morning before anything else.
It's funny. So you do a lot of fiction on YouTube too?
Yeah.
It's so fun. I'm just now realizing and I love, there's tons of fiction that I love, but it's so funny. Growing up, my grandfather was this is another grandfather, voracious reader, read multiple books a week, 2-3 books a week. Didn't go to college, didn't grad, did brilliant, answer every question right on Jeopardy, reading, like I said, 2-3 biographies a week. And I always thought it was so fascinating because at that point in my life, constantly reading fiction, like basically only fiction. Like remember, I'm 39, so I'm right behind you. So like the peak of like Star Wars expanded universe novels, like that was my jam.
Okay.
Like the Thrawn trilogy, like all that stuff. Like I loved reading fiction, and I still do, but like I find that I'm just drawn to nonfiction so much more. Like all of my YouTube content is like people making stuff, and like people like I love watching like people's like studio tours. And
well, I'm a little bit of a because it's all like, well, what's their setup? Like there's a voyeurism to it too.
Like I like MKBHD, like that, like, but like I don't think I really like the closest thing to a narrative structure that I watch on YouTube is like video game documentaries. Like I was watching one on the making of Ocarina of Time earlier today while I was on the elliptical.
I've got some suggestions for you.
Oh, no, that's great. I'd love to try it. Like, and like I think part of like my attention is I find that it's so much harder to pay attention to fiction than it is nonfiction. And I don't know why.
I mean, I'm always on the lookout for a good doc, but like they do tend to be like few and far between, where like there's a story in everything and everyone, and that's true. That story is not always worth telling.
Sure. Yeah, I think maybe my preference for nonfiction, like I hate using preference, but I guess it's like a subconscious.
But it's what you lean towards. Like if I put YouTube in front of you right now, you're going to click on a documentary before you click on a random sketch from somebody.
No. So like,
okay,
comedy sketch, like they're almost like an in between for me. Like,
okay,
but like, and it's funny because like I'm like your classic. I put The Office or Parks and Recreation on to fall asleep just because like it's comfort.
Things I missed completely.
You didn't watch them?
I get some of the references. I've seen it in syndication, but it's like I don't like. I've been present for conversations about The Office that I understand and can follow, and I still go, I love The West Wing more than you love The Office, and I still don't talk about The West Wing like that.
I mean, people are weird and also kind of annoying about The Office. Like, it's it's a cultural touchstone. Like, it's like I loved it. It was fantastic. I watch it more because it's comfort. Like, I like to put on that kind of stuff in the background because I already know, like they say, like there's studies that show like people who are high anxiety, like myself, that like putting that on is comforting because you know what's going to happen.
I used to have that. And now I just put on new, and now it's creator based for me. I think that's my shift.
I can't do that because I don't want I don't want to miss something that I might enjoy. I worry, like, okay. I won't put on a new like a show. Like I never watched It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I'm watching that now, and
that's an active watch for you. You're not putting that on in the background while you're doing something else. You want I have 25 minutes. Watch,
and like I will turn it off if I sense myself starting to doze off. Like a lot of people they'll just doze off and they'll just pick up where they left off. I can't do it.
Okay.
The anxiety of falling asleep during something that I want to watch, it's too much for me. I have to turn it off, turn on something I've already seen, or something that I truly just don't care about at all. And I think like anything like nonfiction or like tutorial stuff, like I feel like they're easier for me to turn off because like you're not like in the middle of a story a lot of times. Like it's easier for me to like say like I'll finish watching this studio tour later. Like it's not a huge cognitive lift or shift for me to start or stop that content.
So what have we established? We've established that if you aren't the family tech support, you should probably be thankful you have someone who will do that stuff for free. There's a fairly good chance that your printer isn't as much of a necessity as it once was, and there's a lot to be fixed when it comes to streaming platforms and devices. But most of all, two strangers can meet online and create a meaningful connection. Do I still want to turn off the internet, or at least slow it down? Absolutely. But becoming friends with Nick has softened my resolve, so there's that. In the meantime, we both encourage you to read, though if you're like Nick and you don't need to finish a book, I won't blame you. Support local libraries and be excellent to each other. That's probably too Bill and Ted, but that's fine. Thanks for listening to the Palmer Files episode 117. And now for the official business. The Palmer Files releases every 2 weeks on Tuesdays. If you're still listening, I encourage you to join the discussion. You can find all related ways to contact my guest, Nick Schiner, and myself in the show notes. There you can find more information about Nick and his work at stayplaying.com. The music for this episode was provided by Henno Heitur. Email can be sent to this show at thepalmerfiles@gmail.com. And remember, your home for all things Agent Palmer is agentpalmer.com. All right, Nick, do you have one final question for me?
I do. So I see behind you, I saw your Indiana Jones figure.
Yeah.
And I need you to move your head. I need you to move your head. So is it Indy? Is that who it is that's there?
Yeah.
You got Cal Ripken behind you too.
Yeah. So it's.
Are you an Orioles fan?
I am. Yeah. I wasn't born in Baltimore, but I was born into the fandom.
Do you ever come down for games? That's not my question.
Yes, I do come down for games. No, it's the Cal Ripken Wheaties box. It's Cal's classic O's, which was a novelty Cal Ripken cereal, and then it's an Avengers novelty cereal, and on top of them, still in package, still in box, is R2-D2.
Okay.
Indiana Jones, and Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Love that.
From the original. So not
that's amazing.
And so, or from the original series. I don't think they're original 1970s Kenners, but
no, they look like the 90s. They look like the 90s, which are still amazing figures, and like I love getting my hands on those when I can.
And so I've downsized a little bit because like I've been on this kick where I'm trying to get rid of stuff because I realized when I moved into my house from my apartment and filled it up that I was like, I have too much stuff. Mm-hmm. And then at the top, and then I had a girlfriend leave before Steph moved in, and the house was still full of stuff. And then Steph moved in, and I was like, I have too much stuff. So those are the things that have, at the moment, survived. I also have a 6-pack of classic Coke bottles, the smaller ones, that are in honor of 2131.
Okay.
Those are just cool. On a bookshelf, and instead of classic Coke, it says classic Cal.
Oh, I love that. That's super cool. Yeah. Well, if you come when you come down for a game, let me know. It's like 15 minutes from my house.
It's the only place I go these days. We usually go in for a series. I keep telling Steph. So I've turned Steph into a sports fan.
Okay.
Because it's not just I'm not just a Baltimore fan. So the Orioles are my team, but like I'm not a Ravens fan. Okay. Because I grew up in a household where my father was still bitter the Colts left. So the Ravens weren't
fair.
And I grew up in a household that is open to many, many sports. So the CFL and the Stallions were pretty big. And,
I remember the Stallions.
And so
Memorial Stadium.
I'm still a big fan of. I've actually taken the
Montreal Alouettes.
No, it's Toronto for me. It's the Argonauts. Okay. But I'm Jason, so the Argonauts works. And I'm in Pennsylvania, but Michigan's my favorite college football team, but Duke's my favorite college basketball team, and I'm okay, and I enjoy watching F1, and I will watch Daytona, but I won't watch all of the NASCAR season. I'm a sports guy, and I've turned her into this. She won't watch all of the things with me, but she watches enough of them with me. Things. But baseball, because it's so long and it happens on a daily basis, I've gotten her into, and she had her first heartbreak having nothing to do with wins and losses when she fell in love with Trey Mancini, and then he got traded at the deadline, and she kind of had to deal with that, and then but it also means she's never really had to deal with. She's only had to deal with one losing season.
Yeah,
because they've now won since she's started following, and I was like, don't get used to this.
Is that correlation or causation?
I don't think it's either. I think it's just that I have turned her into a sports, like it's at a point now where, like, when she visits her mother without me during baseball season, she'll watch the game.
Oh, that's cool.
Or listen to it if she can, or whatever. Like, that's so awesome. I have corrupted her in such a way that now she's got expectations for this upcoming
baseball
season.
Also perfect background. I can fall asleep to baseball too.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, a little bit. But I, for me, all of those sports I mentioned, by the way, I usually, except at really tense moments, I'm reading while all of those things happen. Like, I can watch college football game and pay attention to it while reading a book, or watch 9 innings. And
they're definitely more passive. That's definitely more passive entertainment for me.
But I've kind of ruined her a little bit in that way, where it's like, by the way, I hope I scheduled my podcast for Thursday night because the Orioles have a day game, so I won't miss anything. Nice. Like, I've very much looked at the schedule ahead when I get to spring and summer, and it's like
playing around it.
Yeah, playing around. You and I have scheduled this a few times, and I know that the one time we were supposed to go on Tuesday was because I didn't want to go against the national championship Michigan won on Monday night. I am that guy. I'm also that guy with, like, that my best friend, and we talked about him, Chris, was telling me about a trip he and his wife were going to take to the Finger Lakes, and I was like, that NASCAR is going to be there that weekend. And he's like, really? I'm like, yeah, they're in Watkins Glen, so just stay away. Like, I'm that friend. Like, I wasn't even going to go. I wasn't even going to watch it.
The sports are happening.
I'm just aware, I'm just like, maybe, pay attention. So yeah, no, I've never decided, like, I've never solidified, like, what I want the background to be. So I was like, well, I've got a shelf back there. Let's just fill it up.
I move stuff around all the time.
I mean, look, as a testament to how geeky I can truly be, next to, I don't know if it's in frame, but next to Cal Ripken's Wheaties box, I have a Magic the Gathering deck, which is based around squid and kraken in a tin of Old Bay. Because it felt right. All right. Yeah. So I just, like, everybody's got to have a little fun. You got to,
Yeah, but seriously, let me know when you're down here, and we'll catch a game.
Absolutely.
But my question, so did you see the new? So this is the question leading into the question.
Okay.
Did you see the new trailer for the new Indiana Jones video game?
No.
Damn.
No, because outside of Minecraft. Okay. Which I've gotten into by watching other people and then getting inspired to do it myself. I don't play games anymore.
Okay.
I used to, but I don't play games anymore. And there's a part of me that misses it. But I just explained that I'm reading a lot and I'm watching all of these sports, and it's just like I'm okay not. Like I don't. Sometimes I miss it in like a faint way, but I don't miss it enough to be like, let's plug in the GameCube. No, right. I don't miss it that much. Yeah, no, I'd like to say I follow along with that stuff, but I didn't even know they were still making Indiana Jones games.
Yeah, so Bethesda's making it, like Skyrim, Starfield, those guys, like they're making this game, and it looks pretty cool. There's a kerfuffle online because a lot of the game is in first person, and people are very mad that you're getting to play Indiana Jones in this like 4K, like high resolution, like Indiana, like Harrison Ford's face, and for most of the time, like you are in first person perspective.
But don't you want to be like? Isn't that what did the purpose?
Like first person or third person? What do you prefer?
Did the purpose of video games change? I want to experience what it's like to be Indiana Jones,
as opposed to being able to control Indiana Jones.
Yeah,
I don't know. So like,
I guess it depends on the game too. Like I go back to my earliest gaming experience, like my earliest true gaming, not the first games I played, but the first like games I played where I was like, all right, let's go. It was Quake.
Yeah.
And Wolfenstein. And I don't count Civilization because it's so like not even third, like that's just a real-time strategy.
It's basically a board game.
Yeah, that's a board game. And so it wasn't until Diablo that I get that third person experience. And if given the choice at that time, at the height of my gaming, I'm picking Quake over Diablo every single time.
Yeah, I mean,
I want to experience the thing, not control. Yeah.
I think people's concern is like, will you lose sight of the fact that you are Indiana Jones? So like, I think
absolutely you will. But the purpose of games
is to be in it.
The purpose of games is to be in it, but let's be real. Just like we talked at one point about there being too much content, the purpose of games is to sell games. It's not to make you happy. Are you kidding me? Like that's a different episode all its own. Yeah. But like people aren't making games and movies and television to make you happy. They want you to buy it. That's it.
Yeah. But will you buy it if you're happier?
I don't know.
People also just like to complain about everything. People just like to just see like
when I turned 40, I somebody said old man and I went, yeah, I can now yell at clouds. I can now yell at clouds.
Uh-huh.
Also, if you ever talk to somebody who knew me in college, I've been this grumpy and old for decades.
I will tell you, for the first time ever, this was like a week or two ago, like we had a bunch of rain and it was still like that warm spell that we had. And it was a nice day. It was like in the 50s probably. And I live in a townhome community, and the kids all play in the backyard, and they're playing in the backyard and they're playing football, and like they've just torn like 3 or 4 lawns up. And I didn't do it, but I have never been closer to yelling at kids to stay off my lawn than I was in that moment. Like I went outside to grill dinner, and they're still playing, and I'm like, Nick, don't yell at them. They're children. They haven't torn up your lawn. Do not say, stay off my lawn. And I didn't, and I'm proud of myself. But at the same time, I'm like, if these kids mess up my lawn, and I'm not even a lawn guy. Like, I don't want it to be a mud pit for my own kids.
Yeah.
But like, I was very, very close to like, get off my lawn.